So there are several different types of what we would consider to be classic organizational structures. The most classic organizational structure is going to be the functional structure. This is an organizational structure where we group similar functions together. So this is where you have, like, say, a marketing department, HR department, where the marketing department does all the HR or does all the marketing work for the organization. The HR department does all the HR work. Next, we have a divisional structure. Divisional can take place either focusing on product, customer, or geographic location. And so a product divisional structure would be based upon a product X. All right. Everyone who works on product X, the marketing people, the manufacturing people, the HR people, all those people are together and they only focus on product X. And for product Y, it is a different group of people basically doing those same sorts of jobs: marketing, manufacturing, human resources, and so forth. Next, we have customer. Customer is dividing up the work based off the various types of customers that are served. So there are, generally speaking, three broad classifications of customers. You have business to individual, so individual consumer. You have business to business, so your customers, other businesses. And then B to G, or business to government, so your government is your consumer. In each one of those situations, whether it is an individual, a business, or a government entity, there are different ways that in which you are trying to interact with them and extract information from them and sell things to them. And so by having a workforce that is devoted to that would make sense if you're servicing more than one different type of customer. And then finally, location. This is probably not so important in terms of the differences and geographic differences in the U.S., but when we start talking about between countries, you can have some really big differences. So, such as how you might conduct business in Japan is going to be very different than how you conduct business here in the U.S. And so by specializing in those various locations and making sure you're doing business in the right way could make a lot of sense. Next up, we have hierarchical organizations. These are going to be characterized by relatively narrow spans of controls. And so these are going to have multiple levels or really high levels of managers. And each one of those managers is only going to manage a handful of people versus a flatarchy, which is going to have relatively wide span of controls. And so fewer levels of management. Hierarchical structures do better in a relatively stable environment, whereas that flatarchy does better in relatively unstable environments. Next up, we have the matrix structure, which this is going to be combining two organizational structures, such as a functional with a product divisional, or product and customer divisional might get combined. The idea is that you're trying to get the strengths of all those different ways of structuring organizations and none of the weaknesses that come along with them. And then finally, we have a networking organizational structure. And this is basically just working with other organizations in order to accomplish a goal. And so these various organizations, they sort of merge together on paper to solve bigger problems.